think everyone would agree that the last couple of days here have been tremendously impactful to everyone. I know it exceeded my expectations for what we were going to be able to deliver to you. I knew that the fine staff and faculty that we had assembled for this event would really take the message home to you, and again, they have exceeded my expectations. I've sat in on most of these meetings here, and I just could not believe we could get it to this level of excellence what we have. It's been a tremendous event. In most cases, the lodging assignments, the room assignments for college chapters were done on a random basis. There were a couple of situations where people knew each other and requested a room together, and we tried to honor those. But you need to think about who you're rooming with and think about the possibilities. In 1979, college chapters was held at Blacksburg, Virginia, I believe, at Virginia Tech. Everybody was assigned random roommates in 1979. Two of those brothers who were assigned the room together, one was a young man from Silicotta, Alabama, who was the treasurer of the Beta Theta chapter at Auburn. And the other was from Oklahoma. He was from Oklahoma State, from our Epsilon chapter. Those two brothers grew up to be Maura Gaston and Neil Gilbert. Two of our best operators who run two of our best chapters. So think about the possibilities of where you're going to be 25, 30 years from now. This is the one that we always talk about, what fate brought together here with Maura and Neil, two of our best operators, and the possibilities for this are endless. Last couple of days we've heard a lot about excellence. Some might say, well, what is all this talk? Why all this talk about excellence? That's pretty simple. We're the Legion of Honor. There is no honor in mediocrity. Honor can only be attained through excellence. Mediocrity is our biggest threat. Really, it's the reason, one of the big reasons that we're here, is to make sure that we don't succumb to it, and we outperform it. College chapters in 2007, W&L, Lee Perry, Joe Francis and I took what has now become known as the long walk. We took one day and walked around W&L during the college chapter session, and we talked about excellence and the need for an emphasis on excellence, a need for a return to excellence in the fraternity, and talked about the ways to deliver that excellence. That long walk set much of the stage for the current strategic plan, and specifically for this event. We're not here with you guys this weekend to play fraternity. We're here to teach you all how to excel, teach you all how to build Rock Chapter. We've talked a lot about the best practices library, strategies, tactics. The best practices library is an owner's manual. But just reading, talking about it, and operating these group sessions, in which you have been very great about interacting, just doing that is not going to get it done. 2007, fall of 2007, my son plays at the Beta Theta chapter. I started to spend a lot of time down there, and I'd go around the house and walk through the rooms. I noticed there was one thing in every room. It was usually on a little table beside everyone's bed. It was a framed version of the Auburn Creed. That creed says, I believe that this is a practical world, that I can count only on what I earn. Therefore, I believe in work, hard work. In the last 18 months, we have worked hard. But we've worked smart, and we have worked together. And we're starting to see the results. All these resources we're going to bring to bear for you are great. But without hard work, we stay in the same place. There's another really key element needed to reach excellence, and that's pride. Pride from the Rock chapters to the newest chapters. From those with the largest number of initiates to the smallest number of initiates. Pride is the important factor. Without pride, we're not going to get to excellence. About a decade ago, a large corporation in the United States funded a survey to be done by a well-known consulting firm. The purpose of that survey was to go out and try to find the organization in which the members of that organization had the greatest sense of pride. Now, one of the sideline jokes in the business community is we think that this organization paid for the study thinking they were going to get named the organization with the greatest level of pride, but they missed it by a long shot. But they surveyed and looked at a lot of different organizations, Fortune 500 companies to private businesses, to the Girl Scouts of America, to government agencies. And the one organization that came out on top, whose members had the greatest pride, was the United States Marine Corps. And they dug inside that. They said, why is it that you're so proud of being a United States Marine? Well, you think about this. When you drive up and down the highways or city streets, think how many of those decals, those window decals, bumper stickers, the license plates you see with the eagle anchoring globe on there. But think how many, if you're at a big airport, how many of these older gentlemen now, 80 and 90-year-old veterans of World War II in Korea, being pushed through these airports in wheelchairs, they still wear those red caps with the gold letters, USMC. If you really want to see them, go to Washington and go around the monuments. What is it that makes those people so proud of that? They answered with 3 words: history, tradition, and heroes. We do a great job in Sigma Nu of talking about our history. We all know the story. We're doing a great job of collecting even more elements of our history, starting from the founding and moving forward. Grand historian Bob McCulley has done a Herculean job in assembling a lot of that. We have a lot of work to do. So we've got the history part down, but what about the traditions and the heroes? In 2006, before I was on the High Council, I was appointed to a special task force to study alumni relations, alumni connectivity. And one of the things I recommended, and we had a meeting in Dallas, Texas, so I said, why don't we really highlight a lot of our traditions? And everybody else in the room kind of recoiled away and said, whoa, 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 no, we're not talking about traditions. Because at that point, if you mentioned tradition, people thought about Hell Week. People thought about rat court. People thought about other forms of hazing. But now, thanks to the work of Don Dinsmore and his High Council that really put their foot down and said, we're not hazing. Other brave men that have served this fraternity have helped eradicate that. Past Regent Joe Gilman now serves as chairman of hazingprevention.org. Now we can talk about and celebrate the traditions that have led to excellence through the best practices library. That's the traditions we need to talk about. We need to talk about bid night at Karsten Creek, when Neil Gilpin gets up on the step and says, if you want to be part of the best fraternity on this university campus, take one step forward. We need to talk about the new chapter commanders dinner, where out of over 75 living commanders, about 50 of them show up every year for a dinner with the new commander to tell him, we're here for you. Here's how you need to think about this job. If you need us, call us. And it's not just the 45 or 50 latest commanders. It's Dr. Bernard Chapin. He's 93 years old. He sends handwritten letters to rushees. And he's there every year to talk to the new commander. There's many other traditions, many others, that hopefully you've heard a lot about here. Those are the traditions that we need to talk about and put out there at the forefront. The tradition of the bus trip, the Oklahoma State bus trip, from Stillwater, Oklahoma to Lexington, Virginia. Every year during fall break, Neil Gilpin puts that pledge class on the bus. How many hours is it, Neil, from
22 there.
22 there. They only stay there about 20.
32 hours in Lexington.
32 in Lexington and 22 back. They've won 6 Rock Awards. You go in that house, there's 89 men that live in that house. And every room, just about every room, has a VMI flag hanging in that room because they sense tradition and they have developed pride. We have our heroes, and we don't talk about them enough. We have heroes who've led with vision and with courage. We have Jim Cherry, Joe Gilman, others who served us, Don Dinsmore, Carl Berry. These men who dedicated a lot of their time, a lot of their lives to this fraternity. They are our heroes. You've heard us talk about Andrew Crane, Bobby McMillan, and J.T. Strong. These were commanders that were heroes, who stood one man and maybe as 2 men on large campuses against great odds and built great chapters. If you really want to see some true heroes of this fraternity, you look at this High Council. They led not only with vision, but with incredible courage. It's easy to run a fraternity like a garden club, as most of our competitors do. But that was not our vision, and that's not our mission. Every one of us, from the 7 alumni to these 4 outstanding collegiate grand councilmen, approached this that there were no sacred cows at Sigma Nu. There was nothing that could not be changed. There was nothing that should not be challenged. The actual format, the timing, and the composition of this event is one example. We're not going to tolerate mediocrity. But the most courageous thing this High Council did was to set standards. We put a stake in the ground that we will not accept mediocrity. We will not tolerate it. We expect excellence, and we're going to provide resources. That took courage. Most fraternities just let chapters rock along as they want to. But we cannot develop ethical leaders and build ethical leaders who will lead with vision and courage in a substandard environment. And for this group of men to take that stand and make that statement took an awful lot of courage. We also made a statement that we're not going to be everywhere. Some of you, if you get on the second floor of this hotel, you can look outside. Across the street, there's a park out there. About half the grass is dead out there, but it's about an 8 or 10 acre park. Well, let's just say the state of Missouri came out and said, you know what? We're going to put a 4-year institution in that park. And we're going to have, the purpose of that institution is going to be to grow lettuce. It's kind of a strange reason to have an institution, but I promise you, and we're going to confer 4-year degrees to that institution. Within about 48 hours, at least one of our competitors is going to rush to put a chapter there. But we're not. We are not going to get caught up in an arms race. I went to one of my first fraternal meetings a few years ago, and somebody was making a reference to a fraternity which is not on every campus, but wherever they are a formidable competitor. And somebody said, you know, if they had more chapters, they'd be a Tier 1 fraternity. I'm like, what do you mean? If they had more chapters, they'd be a Tier 1 fraternity. They give us a run for our money everywhere they are. And that's the attitude that we take now, that we will not be everywhere. Neil Gilpin put it best. Why should we go to a campus of a university that cannot fill its freshman class? What makes us think that if they can't fill their freshman class, we can find enough good men for an excellent chapter? So we're running this thing on a rational basis. It's contra to the general thinking in the fraternal world, but again, the vision and courage of this High Council is to be commended. Let's talk about examples of our own pride. I don't think I ever have and probably ever will see a better example of it than yesterday at lunch with Jerry Fields. When he talked about when his back was up against the financial wall, 10 o'clock at night in his office, with his head in his hands, sitting at his desk, he thought to reach in his back pocket, pull out his billfold, and pull out his plastic initiation card and say, I will not fail. And he has not. Another example of pride right here in the room with us tonight. Most everybody's been in the session, Laura Gaston. When you leave this to go to the next session, shake hands with him. Got a class ring on his right hand. As you would expect, it's an Auburn class ring. As you would also expect, it has the letters Sigma Nu on it. Laura graduated in 1982. The graduation date on that ring is 1950. It's his father's ring. His father was the first of 5 men in that family to be initiated that chapter. That's pride. That's pride. That's what drives Laura Gaston to do what he does. And the pride that drove Jerry Fields to do what he does. Probably one of the greatest, most visible examples of pride in the fraternity starts right here in the Delta. Look at that article about Bobby Woods. Bobby Woods, on August 6th, 2010, Bobby was a 25-year-old first lieutenant, Army Ranger lieutenant serving in Afghanistan, leading a special warfare team in Afghanistan. Bobby's platoon was ambushed. Bobby was not just shot in the head. Bobby Woods was shot through the head. His forehead was blown completely off. But in spite of that, he got up, organized a counterattack, beat back the Taliban, called in air medevac for his wounded, and then took himself out by ground. And when all that was over, he finally collapsed and went into a deep coma. Bobby was not supposed to see or speak again. But about 3 weeks later, he woke up and he spoke, and he could definitely see. The doctor said, well, that's one thing, but Bobby's going to have 24 months of rehab. Bobby finished it in 3. September, this past September, Georgia legislature recognized now Captain Bobby Woods in both the House and the Senate for his heroism. Now here's a man whose story's been in the national media. He's received a great deal of attention about it. There he is right there. He goes to the state capitol, has these resolutions written or read on his behalf. Both chambers stand up in thunderous standing ovations. And when they sit down, the first thing Bobby Woods said was, I want to thank my brothers at Sigma Nu fraternity. That's the first thing that Bobby Woods thought about. That's like Jerry Fields pulling out that plastic card. But then you look also in the Delta, look at this cover, the cover story, Bear Bryant. Imagine a lot of your college football fans, and especially us older guys here, know the story of Bear Bryant very well. Obviously, at the time of his retirement, the winningest coach in college football. It was Bryant's legacy of excellence that led me to want us to establish a partnership with the American Heart Association. But Bear Bryant did something that I saw in 1977. He'd been doing it for a few years before that exemplifies his pride in Sigma Nu fraternity. The fall of 1977, Alabama was ranked #1 in the country in football. First weekend of October, they came to Athens to play Georgia. We were ranked #5. The town pretty much shut down on Wednesday night. People, alumni, collegians, cruising all over town, partying. They called off class on Friday. Well, Friday evening, we had scheduled to have date night at our house. Big, beautiful French chateau looking out over the river. We had the dining room tables. We're out on the front porch, covered with tablecloths, candelabras, houseboys serving drinks on both sides. Of course, drinking age was 18 back then. Had a long winding driveway. And we looked out, and here came a white van. University of Alabama Athletic Park logo on the side of it. Figured he was lost. A few minutes later, a young student athletic equipment manager walked in. Had on his crimson, his khaki, his Alabama hat on. He had a big box. He said, I need one of the officers of this fraternity to sign for this box. So I signed for it. He left, and we opened the box. It was 24 plastic stadium drink cups. 24 dozen plastic stadium drink cups. On one side was the Sigma Nu crest. On the other side was courtesy Coach Paul W. Bryant with his state of badge on it. What's his badge number, Scotty?
678.
Yeah, 678. Paul W. Bryant, Theta 678. We go ahead and finish our date night. Next day we have the game against Alabama. We won 21-0. Life goes on. 4 years later, I've graduated, and one of my mentors, I was working in Atlanta, one of my mentors invited me to come with him to Atlanta Touchdown Club, to a private reception to meet Coach Bryant when he was named Coach of the Year. Only about 20, 24 people were in this room, and everybody's kind of making small talk. And I was way, by far, the youngest person in the room. And I said, Coach Bryant, I was a Sigma Nu commander at Georgia in 1977. Y'all sent us a box of these stadium cups. And everybody kind of looked at me like, son, why are you asking that stupid question? We're here to talk about football. Coach Bryant looked down. Didn't say anything for a while. For those of you that know anything about Coach Bryant, especially, a lot of it's going to be in the minds of the old ones here. Coach Bryant was a strong man. He's a big man. He was about 6'4". He didn't say anything. He finally looked up and he bit his lip. And he said, you know, I grew up in Morrow Bottom, Arkansas. He said, my parents were sharecroppers. Probably hardly anybody in here knows what a sharecropper is. Sharecropper meant your family lived on somebody else's land, raised crops, and gave them about 95% of what you got for raising those crops. He said, my parents were sharecroppers. I went to the University of Alabama on a football scholarship. The day I arrived in Tuscaloosa, I owned 3 shirts and 2 pairs of pants. I wore one of each and carried the rest of them in a paper bag. When it became obvious I was going to be a contributor on the football team, one of the ends on the team named Don Hudson went on to become an All-Pro with the Green Bay Packers. Don Hudson said, Brian, come by our fraternity house. Coach Bryant said, I told him I couldn't come. I didn't have any money. He said, don't worry about it. If you will join the fraternity and you're contributing on the football team, our alumni, somebody will take care of your dues. Don't worry about it. So we did. Played Sigma Nu. He was initiated. But when the season was over and the fall semester was over, it was time for everybody to go home. He didn't have enough money to go home to Morrow Bottom, Arkansas. So we stayed in Alabama with some of his Sigma Nu brothers. So now here they are, this holiday period coming up. He's stuck in Alabama with nothing to do. The brothers' house said, Brian, come on, you'll go to these parties with us in Montgomery and Mobile and Birmingham. I don't have the right clothes. Well, it's fine. We'll get you a pair of gray pants and a blazer, a nice shirt, a tie, and some good shoes. And you'll come to these parties with us. He said the first party we went to was in Birmingham, a very exclusive neighborhood in Birmingham. And we all pull up, we get out of the car, stand around the yard for a while. And finally we start walking up to the house. He said, I was leading the way. He said, one of the older brothers jumped in front of me, handing me a bouquet of flowers. He says, listen, Brian, when you get up there and knock on the door, and Miss Jones opens the door, you give her these flowers and say, Miss Jones, these flowers are from the brothers of the Theta chapter of Sigma Nu fraternity. He said, I always remembered that. And later on, I became a head coach. And we would travel on the road. I remembered that when they said you give that woman the flowers, it's because anytime you visit someone, you take a host or hostess gift. So here I am, a head coach, traveling all over the United States, visiting other schools, and I thought I needed to take a host or hostess gift. He said, I could have taken that gift to the president of the university. I could have taken it to the other athletic director. I could have taken it to my opposing coach. But I learned that lesson from Sigma Nu fraternity. And so we would try our best to find out if there was a Sigma Nu chapter on that campus, and if there was, I would give them a gift. Bear Bryant was an accomplished man. You read it in the Delta. For a man like that, to make a statement like that, to do something in his life because of Sigma Nu meant one thing. He was proud of his involvement with this fraternity. If everyone here can get that same level of pride, the level of pride in the fraternity, where when you do something great, the first thing you think about is the fraternity. The same level of pride that Jerry Fields, Captain Bobby Woods, Coach Bear Bryant, that someone instilled in them. Same level of pride that Judge George Hearn, D.H. Culpepper instilled in me back in 1975. The same level of pride that Tom Mason instilled in Charlie Idle, Joe Francis, and Neil Gilpin at Oklahoma State. We will exceed excellence. And I know some of you are going to say, well, Robert, I want to get there. I want to have that level of pride. But I'm from a chapter that's too new. It's too small. We don't have good relationships with our alumni. We don't have those heroes. We don't have anybody to give us that pride. You need to look away and outside your small dot on our map. Because Jerry Fields is your brother. Captain Bobby Woods is your brother. Captain Coach Bear Bryant is your brother. Charlie Idle is your brother. James Doty is your brother. Jim Cherry is your brother. And I'm your brother. And together, we can all come together for support to help you. It's been widely acknowledged today and yesterday that we're all from different places. We're from the east, the west, the north, the south. We've got big chapters, small chapters, public schools and private schools. We've got chapters that won multiple Rock Awards and some that are striving for their first Rock Award. But we're from Rayville, Louisiana. We're from Melbourne, Australia. We're from Springfield, Massachusetts. We're from Springfield, Missouri. We're from Monroe, Louisiana, and Monroe, Georgia. We're from Seattle, Sylacauga. We're from Fresno. We're from Philadelphia. We're from Andover, Massachusetts, Andalusia, Alabama. We're in the big city of St. Louis, and I'm from a small town of Bowden, Georgia, and we are the Knights of the Legion of Honor. Thank you very much for your time tonight, and thank you for the opportunity to lead this great fraternity into this biennium.